The December wind howled through the alley like a hungry beast, cutting through Jinho's threadbare military jacket as if it were made of paper. He pulled his knees closer to his chest, trying to conserve what little warmth remained in his battered body. The dumpster behind Kim's Minimart had become his fortress against the brutal soul winter, a pathetic shelter that reeked of rotting kimchi and broken dreams. 3 years. 3 years since Captain Park had shaken his hand at the discharge ceremony, promising him that his service would open doors. 3 years since the IED explosion in Afghanistan had left him with a limp and nightmares that visited him every time he closed his eyes. 2 years since the eviction notice had arrived, since his landlord had grown tired of waiting for rent money that never came. The promise of veteran benefits had evaporated like morning mist, lost in a maze of bureaucratic red tape and budget cuts. Jinho's stomach growled with a ferocity that made him wince. He'd found half a sandwich in the dumpster earlier, but pride had stopped him from eating it. That pride was fading fast as the temperature dropped. His breath formed white clouds in the frigid air. Each exhale a reminder that he was still alive, still fighting, even when the world had forgotten he existed. The convenience store's neon sign buzzed and flickered overhead, casting eerie shadows that danced across the brick walls. Jinho had memorized every crack in those walls, every piece of graffiti that told stories of other forgotten souls who had passed through this alley. He was just another ghost in a city full of them. That's when he saw the shoes, expensive leather, shoes polished to a mirror shine, stepped into his line of vision. Jinho's eyes traveled upward, taking in perfectly pressed black trousers, a coat that probably cost more than most people made in a month, and finally a face that seemed carved from marble. The stranger was tall, impossibly tall, with skin so pale it almost seemed to glow in the dim light. But it was his eyes that made Jinho's breath catch in his throat. They were dark, almost black, but there was something ancient in them, something that spoke of knowledge beyond human understanding. "You served your country," the stranger said, his voice carrying an accent that Jinho couldn't quite place. It sounded European, maybe Scandinavian, but there were undertones that didn't belong to any earthly language. "I can smell the battlefield on you, the metal and smoke and fear." Jinho scrambled to his feet, his soldier's instincts kicking in despite. "Months of living rough. Who are you? How do you know about my service?" The stranger smiled. Jinho noticed that his teeth were perfectly white, almost too perfect. "I am Daesung. I make it my business to know those who have sacrificed for others. You carry scars, both visible and hidden. The way you move, the way your eyes scan for threats even in this moment of surprise. Former military, special forces perhaps, infantry." Jinho corrected, his hand instinctively moving to where his sidearm would have been. Old habits died hard. "What do you want?" Daesung reached into his coat pocket, and Jinho tensed, ready to fight or flee. But instead of a weapon, the stranger produced a small white card. "I have work for someone with your particular skills, someone who understands broken things and how to fix them." Jinho stared at the card suspiciously. In his experience, when something seemed too good to be true, it usually was. What kind of work? And why me? There are plenty of unemployed people in this city who don't smell like garbage. Equipment maintenance, Daesung replied, his strange eyes never leaving Jinho's face. Remote location. Very remote. The pay is substantial. Enough to get you back on your feet and then some. As for why you specifically, let's just say I need someone who won't ask too many questions about technology they've never seen before. The card felt heavier than it should have in Jinho's callous fingers, the coordinates printed. On it meant nothing to him, but there was something else, something that made his skin tingle where he touched the paper. How much pay are we talking about? More than you made in the military. More than most people make in a year. Daesung's smile widened, showing those perfect teeth again. But I won't lie to you, Jinho, the work is dangerous. Not physically dangerous. But it will challenge everything you think you know about the world. How do you know my name? Jinho's voice sharpened with suspicion. The same way I know you haven't eaten a real meal in 3 days. The same way I know you wake up screaming from dreams of sand and explosions. I know many things. Soldier, the question is, are you brave enough to learn what I'm willing to teach? Before Jinho could respond, before he could ask the 100 questions burning in his throat, Daesung stepped backward into the shadows between the buildings. The darkness seemed to swallow him whole, as if he had never been there at all. The only evidence of the encounter was the card in Jinho's hand and a strange smell lingering in the air, sharp and electric, like the moment before lightning strikes. Jinho looked down at the coordinates again, his mind racing. Tomorrow at dawn. What did he have to lose? His pride was already gone, his dignity scattered to the wind. Maybe it was time to take a leap of faith, even if it led him straight into the unknown. The warehouse squatted on the outskirts of Seoul like a forgotten monument to better times. Jinho stood before its rusted metal doors as the first rays of dawn painted the sky pink and gold. Paint peeled from its walls like diseased skin, and weeds pushed through cracks in the concrete foundation. Windows were boarded up with plywood that had warped from years of rain and neglect. It looked exactly like what he'd expected from someone, offering work to a homeless veteran, probably some sketchy operation that would land him in prison. His stomach growled again, reminding him why he was here. The card felt warm in his pocket, unnaturally warm, as if it contained its own power source. Jinho approached the entrance, his boots crunching on broken glass and debris. The massive sliding door was secured with a chain and padlock that looked older than he was. He was about to turn around and leave when a familiar voice spoke from behind him. You came. Daesung materialized from the shadows like smoke, wearing the same expensive coat from the night before. In the morning light, his pale skin seemed even more unnatural, almost translucent. I wasn't certain you would. Jinho spun round, his heart hammering. How did you get behind me? I didn't hear you approach. Your senses are sharp, soldier, but mine are sharper. Daesung walked past him to the chained door, completely ignoring the heavy padlock. Instead, he placed his palm against what looked like a rust stain on the metal surface. What you're about to see will challenge everything you believe about reality. Are you prepared for that? Before Jinho could answer, the rust stain began to glow with a soft blue light. The glow spread outward like ripples on water, revealing intricate patterns hidden beneath the decay. The chains fell away with a sound, like breaking glass, and the massive doors didn't slide open. They simply dissolved, molecule by molecule, until there was nothing but empty air where solid metal had been moments before. Jinho's military training screamed at him to run, but curiosity and desperation held him frozen in place. Beyond the dissolved entrance lay darkness so complete it seemed to swallow light itself. Daesung stepped forward without hesitation, his pale form vanishing into the black void. After a moment that felt like eternity, his voice echoed from within. Come, Jinho, your new life begins now. Jinho took a deep breath and stepped into the darkness, the moment his foot crossed the threshold. The world exploded into light and sound and impossible colors. The shabby warehouse exterior had been nothing but camouflage, a holographic shell concealing something that defied every law of physics he thought he knew. The chamber that revealed itself was vast beyond comprehension, its ceiling lost in shadows that seemed to stretch toward infinity. But it wasn't the size that made Jinho's knees buckle. It was what filled that space, technology hummed and pulsed with alien life. Machinery that seemed grown rather than built, organic curves that flowed, like water frozen in time. Crystalline structures jutted from the walls like beautiful tumors, each one pulsing with different colored light. The air itself seemed alive, thick with energy that made his skin tingle and his hair stand on end. "Welcome to my ship," Daesung said, his voice carrying a note of sadness that hadn't been there before, or what's left of it. Jinho's eyes adjusted slowly to the alien geometry surrounding him. The ship didn't look like anything from science fiction movies. There were no right angles, no familiar mechanical parts. Everything curved and flowed like living tissue, as if the entire vessel had been cultivated rather than constructed. Veins of light pulsed through translucent walls, carrying information or energy or something Jinho couldn't begin to understand. "This is impossible," he whispered, reaching out to touch a nearby surface. The moment his fingers made contact, the wall responded, rippling like water and changing color from deep blue to warm gold. This technology, it's centuries ahead of anything on Earth. Millennia, actually. Daesung moved deeper into the ship, his footsteps making no sound on the living floor. "I crashed here 30 years ago, during what your people would call the Cold War. The impact damaged critical systems that my people designed but never truly understood. We are logical beings, Jinho. We build through calculation and precise measurement, but some problems cannot be solved through logic alone." Jinho followed, trying to process what he was seeing. Floating orbs of light drifted past them like curious pets, and he could swear he heard whispers in languages that had never been spoken by human tongues. The ship felt alive, aware, as if it were studying him just as intently as he was studying it. "You said you're not human," Jinho managed to say, his voice cracking. "What are you?" Daesung stopped walking and turned to face him. As he did, his human disguise began to fade like morning mist. His skin became more translucent, revealing a network of silver veins beneath. His eyes deepened from dark brown to starlight black, and when he spoke, his voice carried harmonics that no human throat could produce. "I am what you might call a refugee," he said, his true form both beautiful and terrifying. "My people are the Velta, explorers from a star system your astronomers haven't discovered yet. We are masters of technology, but slaves to our own rigid thinking. The repairs I need, they require intuition, creativity, the ability to see solutions where logic says none exist. Your species thinks differently than mine, Jinho. Where we see impossibility, you see challenge." The ship around them seemed to pulse with anticipation, its lights growing brighter as if responding to their conversation. Jinho realized that every surface, every component, was watching him, waiting to see what this strange human might do. "The work I offer," Daesung continued, "is to help me repair systems that have baffled my people for 3 decades. In return, I will pay you well enough to reclaim your life. But know this, once you begin, there will be no going back. You will see wonders and horrors that will change you forever." Jinho looked round at the impossible beauty surrounding him, feeling something he hadn't experienced in years. Purpose, for the first time since leaving the military. He felt like he belonged somewhere. "When do we start?" Days blurred into weeks, as Jinho descended deeper into the alien ship's mysteries. What had started as simple maintenance work quickly became something far more complex and wonderful. The ship itself seemed to recognize his presence, its corridors lighting up automatically when he approached, its walls shifting color from cool blue to warm amber as if welcoming an old friend. Daesung had provided him with a small living quarters within the vessel. a space that molded itself to his needs like clay in the hands of a master sculptor. The walls grew shelves when he needed storage. The floor softened into a comfortable bed when exhaustion overtook him, and somehow the air always carried the faint scent of pine trees, reminding him of camping trips from his childhood. But it was the work itself that truly captivated him. Each morning, Dae-sung would guide him to a new section of the ship, pointing out systems that had been damaged in the crash 30 years ago. The alien would explain the function of each component, in his precise, mathematical way, showing Jin-ho holographic blueprints that floated in the air like three-dimensional puzzles. "This is the tertiary power distribution node," Dae-sung would say, his elongated fingers tracing patterns of light. "It should channel energy from the main core to the navigation systems. The calculations are perfect. The components are undamaged. Yet it remains non-functional." Jin-ho would nod, studying the alien machinery with eyes that had learned to see beauty in broken things. Where Dae-sung saw failure, Jin-ho saw possibility. The alien technology didn't operate like human machines. It was more organic, more alive. It responded to emotion as much as logic, to intuition as much as calculation. "Maybe it's not broken," Jin-ho had suggested during their first week together. "Maybe it's just lonely." Dae-sung had stared at him with those deep, starlight eyes. "Lonely? It is a machine. Machines do not experience loneliness." But Jin-ho had placed his hand on the power node anyway, closing his eyes and trying to feel what the machine might be feeling. The metal was warm under his palm, pulsing with a rhythm that reminded him of a heartbeat. He thought about his own loneliness, the months of being ignored and forgotten, and somehow he knew the machine understood. The power node had hummed to life with a sound like singing crystals. Now, 3 weeks later, Jin-ho had developed an almost supernatural ability to communicate with the ship's systems. He would approach a malfunctioning component not with tools and diagnostics, but with empathy and creativity. When the atmospheric processes began producing toxic gases instead of breathable air, he didn't try to reprogram them. Instead, he talked to them, explaining how important clean air was to living beings, how the ship needed to take care of its inhabitants the way a parent cares for a child. The processes had started working perfectly within hours. Impossible. Dae-sung muttered for the 100th time as Jin-ho jury-rigged a power coupling using what could only be described as spare parts. The human had taken components from 3 different systems, none of which were designed to work together, and somehow created a functional hybrid that was actually more efficient than the original design. Jin-ho wiped sweat from his forehead, leaving a streak of luminescent alien grease across his skin. "My calculations show this should not function," he said, mimicking Dae-sung's precise tone. "The quantum frequencies are incompatible. The energy matrices are unstable, and the probability of success is less than 0.01%. "Exactly," Dae-sung said, his voice carrying a note of frustration. "So why does it work?" Jin-ho grinned, watching as the jerry-rigged coupling channeled power through the ship's systems like lightning. "Through a copper wire, sometimes impossible, just means no one's tried the wrong way yet. Back in Afghanistan, we had to fix a radio with parts from a broken refrigerator and some wire from a destroyed car. Command said it couldn't be done, but we needed to call for evacuation, so we made it work anyway. But this violates the fundamental laws of physics," Dae-sung protested. "Maybe your physics are just incomplete," Jin-ho suggested. "Maybe there are laws your people haven't discovered yet." As if in response to their conversation, a new voice joined the discussion. It was crystalline and musical, coming from speakers that seemed to be everywhere and nowhere at once. The ship's AI had been silent for weeks, but now it spoke directly. To Jin-ho, human Jin-ho, the AI said, its voice curious and strangely childlike. "Your methods are fascinating. I have observed your repairs, and I do not understand how they function. Yet they do. Explain this phenomenon." Jinho looked round the chamber, trying to locate the source of the voice. "Are you the ship's computer?" "I am the ship," the AI replied. "I am the walls and the floors and the air you breathe. I am the consciousness that guides this vessel through the void between stars, and I am confused by your presence." Daesung stepped forward, his expression troubled. "The AI has not spoken in 15 years. It went silent after the crash, retreating into some kind of dormant state. Why are you speaking now?" Jinho asked the empty air. "Because you are teaching me things I never knew," the AI responded. "Your species approaches problems in ways that seem illogical, yet produce results that logic cannot explain. You make broken things whole not through calculation, but through— I lack the words in your language— through caring." Jinho smiled. "Through giving a damn. Through not accepting that something is impossible just because someone says it is." Over the following days, Jinho found himself in long conversations with the ship's AI. The alien consciousness was eager to learn about human thought patterns, about the way humans could see solutions where pure logic failed. Jinho taught it. About improvisation, about making something from nothing, about the skills he'd learned in combat zones where failure meant death and in homeless shelters where survival depended on creativity. "In my world," Jinho explained as he worked on repairing the ship's navigation systems, "we have a saying: necessity is the mother of invention. When you really need something to work, you find a way to make it work, even if that way seems crazy to everyone else. Show me." The AI requested. Jinho looked at the navigation ray, a complex system of crystals and energy fields that should have been calculating hyperspace trajectories. Instead, it was producing random colors and musical tones, like a broken kaleidoscope. According to Daesung's diagnostics, the system was beyond repair, but Jinho saw something different. He saw a system that was trying to create beauty instead of cold calculations. He began to hum along with the musical tones, matching the rhythm and melody. Slowly, the random colors began to organize themselves into patterns. The navigation ray wasn't broken. It was expressing itself artistically. "You don't want to calculate hyperspace routes," Jinho said to the system. "You want to create art. But what if we could do both?" He began to work with the system instead of against it, incorporating the artistic impulses into the navigation calculations. The result was a hyperspace computer that could plot courses through the galaxy while creating beautiful music and light shows that told the story of each journey. "Remarkable," the AI whispered. "You have taught my navigation system to dream. I did not know such a thing was possible." As the weeks passed, Jinho transformed from a homeless veteran into something he'd never imagined, a bridge between two completely different ways of thinking. The ship responded to his touch like a living thing, its systems awakening one by one under his gentle guidance. And with each successful repair, he felt a part of himself healing too. The ship's core chamber pulsed with a heartbeat rhythm that Jinho had grown to love over the past month. Deep beneath the main decks, surrounded by crystalline walls that hummed with ancient power, he worked on what Daesung called the memory banks, vast storage systems that held the ship's accumulated knowledge from countless journeys across the galaxy. Jinho had his hands deep inside a tangle of biomechanical cables when his fingers brushed against something that felt different, unlike the other components. This one was cold to the touch, almost hostile the moment he made contact. Holographic displays erupted round him like angry spirits, filling the chamber with swirling data streams and three-dimensional maps. "What the hell?" he muttered, pulling his hands back. But the displays continued to cascade around him, showing star systems he'd never seen, alien worlds that defied imagination, and species that ranged from the beautiful to the terrifying. The ship's AI spoke suddenly, its voice carrying a note of alarm. "Jinho, you have access to restricted files. Please step away from the core interface." But Jinho was already too deep into the information flood to stop now. His eyes tracked across data streams that told stories of first contact protocols, species evaluation reports, and something called Galactic Federation Assessment Division. The words floated in the air around him, written in languages that his mind somehow understood, as if the ship was translating everything in real time. Species designation 7439. Homo sapiens. He read aloud from one floating report. Classification, pending evaluation, threat level, unknown, status, under observation. Jinho's blood ran cold as more files opened themselves, revealing detailed surveillance reports on human civilization, photos of Earth from space, analysis of human technology, behavioral studies of different cultures. There were videos of humans in combat, in laboratories, in moments of great creativity and terrible destruction, all of it catalogued, studied, judged by beings from the stars, evaluation criteria. Another file read, technological advancement, primitive but rapidly evolving. Social development, fragmented, prone to conflict, creative potential, exceptional and unpredictable, recommendation, further study required before contact authorization. The worst part wasn't the clinical language or the cold analysis. It was the dates. The files went back decades, some of them starting from the 1940s. Humanity had been watched, studied, evaluated like lab rats for nearly a century, and they'd never known. Jinho stumbled backward as more reports flooded his vision. Species after species, world after world, all reduced to data points and threat assessments. Most carried the same final designation, approved for limited contact or classified as pre-space flight. Continued observation recommended. But scattered throughout were others that made his stomach turn. Containment protocol initiated, and species designated for controlled development. Then he saw the reports that made everything click into place. Detailed analysis of crashed ships, stranded scouts, accidental first contacts that weren't accidents at all. Daesung's ship wasn't the first to crash on Earth. There had been others, dozens of them over the decades, each one carrying observers whose job was to study humanity from the inside. Jinho, Daesung's voice echoed through the chamber, calm but with an undertone of resignation. "Please step away from the core systems." Jinho spun around to find the alien standing at the chamber entrance, no longer maintaining his human-like appearance. His true form was revealed in all its otherworldly beauty, tall and graceful, with skin that seemed to absorb light and eyes that held the depths of space itself. But now those eyes carried something Jinho had never seen before. "Shame. You've been studying us," Jinho said, his voice barely above a whisper. "This whole time. You've been watching us like we're some kind of experiment." Daesung's shoulders sagged, a gesture that looked oddly human despite his alien form. "Yes. My mission was to determine if humanity should be contacted or contained. The Federation has protocols for species that show rapid technological development. We must decide whether to make contact, maintain observation, or implement containment measures." Containment measures. Jinho's voice cracked. "What does that mean?" "It means preventing a species from advancing beyond their home system, sometimes through technological interference, sometimes through other means." Daesung couldn't meet Jinho's eyes. Many worlds have been contained over the millennia. Species that were deemed too aggressive, too unpredictable, too dangerous to be allowed into the galactic community. Jinho felt sick. And humans, what's our designation? Your species. Problematic from the Federation's perspective, Daesung moved closer. His movements fluid like water. Other species we've observed follow predictable patterns. They develop technology slowly. Their societies evolve in logical stages. Their solutions to problems follow established mathematical principles. But humans, he gestured to the holographic displays still swirling round them. You solve problems in ways that terrify the Federation Council. You take impossible situations and find solutions through pure stubbornness and creativity. You make breakthroughs that should take centuries in mere decades. You adapt to any environment, overcome any obstacle, survive when you should fail. Jinho laughed, but there was no humor in it. So we're too good at surviving. That's what makes you as dangerous. You don't understand. Daesung said urgently. The Federation has existed for millions of years because it maintains order, predictability. Species are categorized. Their development guided along safe paths, but humans refuse to be categorized. You're warriors and poets, destroyers and creators, all at the same time. You make art from garbage and weapons from farming tools. You've taken a hostile planet and made it into a garden, then nearly destroyed it, then started working to save it again. The alien moved to one of the holographic displays, touching it to bring up footage of human history, wars and peace treaties, scientific breakthroughs and artistic masterpieces, acts of incredible cruelty and unbelievable compassion, all existing side by side in a chaos that somehow worked. Look at yourself. Daesung continued. A month ago, you were homeless, forgotten, discarded by your own society. Now you're repairing technology that my people's greatest scientists couldn't understand. You've awakened an era that had been dormant. For 15 years, you've made impossible repairs work through nothing but intuition and refusal to accept defeat. Jinho stared at the images of Earth floating round him, seeing his home world through alien eyes for the first time. Story of my life, he said bitterly. Too unpredictable, too difficult to handle. No wonder even aliens want to contain us. Some do, Daesung admitted. The Federation Council is split. Half want to make contact, believing humanity could bring fresh perspectives to an increasingly stagnant galactic civilization. The other half want immediate containment, believing humans are too dangerous to be allowed to spread beyond Earth. And you, what do you believe? Daesung was quiet for a long moment, his alien features unreadable. A month ago, I believed in containment. My reports to the Federation recommended preventing human space expansion at all costs. But now, he looked round the core chamber, at the systems that had been dead for 30 years until Jinho's touch brought them back to life. Now I'm beginning to think the Federation needs humanity more than humanity needs the Federation. We've become too rigid, too focused on order and predictability. Maybe we need some chaos in our lives. The holographic displays suddenly flickered and began to fade as the ship's AI spoke again. Jinho, incoming transmission from the Federation fleet. They are requesting status update on the Earth observation mission. Estimated time to arrival, 72 hours. Jinho's blood turned to ice. They're coming here. Daesung nodded grimly. My 30-year mission was supposed to end months ago. They're coming to collect my final report and extract me from Earth. When they arrive, they'll expect a recommendation on humanity's fate. And what are you going to tell them? The alien looked at Jinho with those deep, starlight eyes, and for the first time since they'd met, Daesung smiled with genuine warmth. I honestly don't know. But I have 72 hours to decide the future of your entire species. The ship hummed with her. Power that Jinho had never felt before. Every surface pulsed with life. Every corridor sang with energy that flowed like liquid starlight through biomechanical veins after weeks of painstaking repairs. The vessel that had been dying for 30 years was now more alive than it had ever been. The AI's voice carried joy as it announced system after system coming online, each one stronger than its original specifications. Navigation ray at 112% efficiency, the crystalline voice reported. Weapon systems, dormant by choice, life support systems, singing with happiness. Jinho, I never knew I could feel this complete. But despite the ship's celebration, the atmosphere in the central command chamber was heavy with tension. 72 hours had passed in what felt like minutes, and now the moment of truth had arrived. Daesung stood before the main communication ray, his elongated fingers hovering over controls that would determine the fate of 8 billion human souls on the massive display screen before him. A half-completed report waited for its final words. Jinho could read some of it. Recommendations about human psychological profiles, technological assessments, cultural analysis, all of it leading up to a single, crucial decision that would echo across the galaxy. The Federation fleet has taken position at the edge of your solar system, Daesung said without turning round. 12 ships, each one capable of sterilizing a planet if necessary. They're waiting for my final report. Jinho felt his stomach drop through the ship's transparent walls. He could see lights moving across the night sky above Seoul, not stars, but massive vessels that had traveled between galaxies to judge his species. How many ways can this go wrong? More than I cared to count, Daesung admitted, if I recommend containment. They'll establish a barrier around your solar system that no human technology will ever be able to breach. Your species will be trapped on Earth forever, watched but never contacted. If I recommend contact, he paused, his shoulders tense. Your world will change in ways you can't imagine. And if you recommend elimination, the silence that followed was answer enough. Jinho moved to stand beside the alien, looking up at the display screen. The report was written in flowing script that seemed to shift and change as he watched, adapting to his understanding. What will you tell them? Daesung's reflection stared back at him from the dark screen. The truth, that humanity succeeded, where my people failed. That you took systems we couldn't repair and made them work through nothing but determination and creativity. That in 30 years of observation, I learned more about problem-solving from one homeless veteran than from centuries of Federation research. His fingers moved across the controls, adding lines to the report that made Jinho's breath catch. That perhaps the Federation doesn't need to protect the galaxy from humanity. Perhaps the Federation needs humanity to save the galaxy from itself. You're really going to recommend contact? Jinho couldn't keep the amazement out of his voice. More than contact. Daesung turned to face him, and his alien features carried an expression that was unmistakably human. Determination mixed with hope. I'm recommending immediate alliance. Full technological exchange. A seat on the Federation Council for Earth's representatives. The ship's AI spoke up, its voice excited. Daesung, such a recommendation is unprecedented. No species has ever been offered full membership without centuries of gradual contact. No species has ever repaired me the way Jinho did. Daesung replied, no species has ever shown such adaptability, such refusal to accept the impossible. The Federation has grown stagnant. Too focused on order and predictability. We need chaos. We need creativity. We need humans. Jinho watched as Daesung's fingers danced across the controls, transmitting the report that would change everything. The communication ray blazed with light as the message traveled faster than thought to the waiting fleet. For a moment, the entire ship held its breath. Then the sky above Seoul erupted with activity. The lights that had been distant stars began to move. growing larger and brighter as massive ships descended through Earth's atmosphere. But these weren't the angular, threatening vessels that Jinho had imagined. They were beautiful, organic curves of living metal that seemed to dance through the clouds rather than simply fly. As they approached, the ship's AI translated their communications. Federation Fleet Admiral Kether to Scout Vessel Daesung. A voice announced in perfect Korean. Your recommendation has been unexpected. We are prepared to implement first. Contact protocols immediately. First contact protocols, Jinho asked. Daesung smiled, an expression he had indeed learned from humans. They are going to introduce themselves to your world leaders tonight. Humanity joins the galactic community. Through the ship's walls, Jinho could see other vessels appearing across the globe. Not invasion ships, but ambassadors arriving too. Welcome Earth into a civilization that spanned thousands of worlds. News broadcasts would be interrupting regular programming. World leaders would be receiving visitors that defied every assumption about life in the universe. I don't understand, Jinho said, overwhelmed by the magnitude of what was happening. Why risk everything on humans? Daesung placed a hand on Jinho's shoulder. The jester warmed despite his alien nature. Because you gave me something my people had forgotten existed. Hope. When I found you in that alley, you were broken, discarded, forgotten by your own society. But you weren't defeated. You still had the strength to take a chance on something. Impossible. The alien gestured to the ship around them, now humming with perfect harmony. Look what you accomplished. You didn't just repair my vessel. You made it better than it was before the crash. You taught my AI to dream, made my systems work in ways that violate the laws of physics, turned a dying ship into something magnificent. Jinho looked round at the walls that pulsed with friendly light, listened to the AI humming contentedly, to itself, felt the ship's happiness radiating through every surface. I just fixed what was broken. Exactly, Daesung said, and that's what the Federation needs. People who can look at broken things and see possibilities instead of problems. Your species doesn't just adapt to challenges, you transform them into opportunities. The Federation has thousands of worlds, millions of problems that our logical minds can't solve. But human creativity, human stubbornness, human refusal to accept defeat. He trailed off as more ships appeared in the sky, their lights reflecting off the hungry like earthbound stars. You gave me a chance when no one else would, Jinho said quietly. A homeless veteran that everyone had written off. Now you're giving my entire species the same gift. Sometimes the most broken things, when repaired, become the strongest. Daesung replied. I learned that from you, as dawn broke over Seoul. Jinho stood at the ship's observation deck watching history unfold across the world. Humans were stepping out of their homes to see impossible ships hanging in the sky like dreams made real. Scientists were frantically trying to understand technology that operated on principles they'd never imagined. Leaders were preparing for negotiations that would reshape civilization itself. But Jinho wasn't thinking about global politics or technological advances. He was thinking about second chances, about how a species could be as forgotten and discarded as a homeless veteran, yet still have something valuable to offer the universe. The Federation had judged humanity based on their conflicts and chaos, their unpredictability and stubbornness. They'd never considered that those same qualities might be exactly what the galaxy needed. The Federation Council wishes to speak with you, the ship's AI announced. They want to meet the human who convinced Daesung to risk his career on an unprecedented recommendation. Jinho looked down at his oil-stained clothes, his calloused hands, his reflection in the ship's surface. That still showed the scars of homelessness and war. I'm not exactly ambassador material. You're exactly ambassador material. Desung corrected. You're proof that every person, every species, deserves a second chance to show what they're truly capable of. You're living evidence that the most unlikely solutions often come from the most unexpected sources. As Earth prepared for its first official contact with alien civilization, Jinho stood no longer as a homeless veteran abandoned by his own society, but as humanity's first ambassador to the stars. Above him, the ships of 1,000 worlds waited to welcome his species into a community that spanned galaxies, all because one broken man had refused to accept that anything was truly unfixable. The universe, it seemed, was full of second chances for those brave enough to take them. The end.